Latinized term of it. And I never liked that term. I always liked the term that was coined by a man who I have great respect for. He contributed a lot to astrology, medical astrology. His name was Ibn Ezra. In fact, if anybody looks up the Bible, they'll actually see he's one of the commentators in the Old Testament and the Psalms. He was Rabbi Ibn Ezra. And a lot of people find that the deeper they dig into astrology, the more the very people in religions that had done translations of the Bible, the King James particularly, Francis Bacon, etc., were all into astronomy, which was astrology prior to the 1700s. They're one and the same. Galileo was an astrologer. They called him an astronomer, but that's what astronomy was. Even C.S. Lewis conceded to that. So what I use when people call me up to say, hey, is it in my best interest to marry so-and-so or to do this business deal, buy this restaurant, or move, or whatever, I don't use their birth chart. I cast a chart for the moment in time they break their mind. And the eastern horizon at the time I cast the chart is the querent, meaning the person asking the question. And the houses, which there's 12 of them in astrology, pertain to what they're asking about. And I have been asked every question I can think of. I've heard a lot over the years. I have thousands of interrogation charts. And I have never seen one wrong yet. The only time that I have been wrong is if I wasn't careful enough on real tricky charts to delineate all of the messages in it, because some of them get really complex. But I would say the success rate has been exceedingly high, high 90s. I mean, rarely. I could count on one hand that I've actually been wrong in interpreting the chart, because the charts are very lucid. Like, I've had people ask about missing money, lost objects, lost pets, their horses. Is my wife playing around, my husband playing around? And you can really see these things. Business I get all the time, and that's a lot of times what people call about in business is they'll come up and say, hey, is so-and-so going to sue me? Or if they do, or I'm in a lawsuit, will I win? The judge is the 10th house, your opponent is the 7th, and you can see by the geometric aspects the likelihood of what's going to happen. And it's usually right on. In fact, I've never seen it not right on. And people say, well, that's predicting the future. Well, no, it's not. What it's doing is it's showing probable outcomes based on consciousness. And most people who are rooted in their reality don't change their viewpoints, very rarely. And even if they do, it's usually indicated in the chart.
Huh.
You could see if somebody hates your guts, loves you, loathes you, likes you, helps you out. It's amazing. The ancient astrology is so much richer than modern astrology. Not that modern astrology hasn't contributed some valuable things.
Now, I just got a message from one of our listeners. They want to know what's the difference between what you do and what a mystic does.
Well, a mystic's a really generalized term. A lot of people refer to themselves as mystics, and some of them really are. I mean, a mystic is, that's, a somewhat generalized term. I would say psychics, mystics, astrologers, all that kind of come in that genre. And I do a lot of stuff with astrology that's pretty amazing in terms of going into the mystical realm. I do clearings of property. You can see if someone's possessed with an entity, a disincarnate soul, with elementals. You could see if a property is really possessed. There's another type of astrology I haven't mentioned yet, and that's called electional astrology. Now, that's the one a lot of very powerful business people use me for, and that is executing contracts, marriages. I do a lot of wedding elections where people will say to me, I want to get married, I've been married before, or I want to be married one time and I want this to go smooth, I don't want a divorce, and I want things to work. And I literally will pick a time that they can get married. And some people in religions are very against astrology. Well, it's the work of the devil, which is crazy, but whatever, they have a right to their opinion. It's actually the work of God when you really look at it. It proves God, in my opinion. So when people sign contracts, like, here's a great example. All the time I'm doing real estate stuff where I've had people say to me, oh my God, I signed with this realtor and the house hasn't sold in 2 years. I had one lady, I can't mention where these are, but several clients have come to me where the house is sat on the market, they got a couple offers, and it just fizzled. Nothing happened. And I said, okay, when the contract runs out, call me. And then I will give you a good time at which to sign a new contract with a new realtor or that same one, whichever you want to pick, and plant the sign in the ground and upload the pictures. And the house invariably sells in a very short amount of time. And I've had people even be skeptical. I just had a lady who could not get the asking price she wanted. The contract ran out. She put it back on the market, and she got more than she was asking for it. And she sold it in a reasonably short amount of time. That's what's interesting is the astrology. Electional astrology, you have to find when the energies are good. Benjamin Franklin was an avid proponent of electional astrology. He said no general, no king, no emperor would ever commence major acts without first looking at the astrology or consulting a professional astrologer to get it right. And that's where we have the richness of all this stuff. I have to tell you, some of my best reference materials are from, I'd say, 200 BC all the way up to about the 1200s. And that stuff is so accurate, it is creepy. It's amazing. Like, people are always saying, oh, you're so good. I'm like, well, I'm good only because I study hard, and I really, really do work hard. But I'm good because I have great reference materials. I mean, I'm standing on the shoulders of this divine knowledge. And when I look at, like, one of my favorite references is Dorotheus is one, but Guido Bonatti. He was I think he was in the 1200s. He was a 13th century astrologer. I mean, what a rich text. I mean, and I have used this stuff, and it's secret stuff you can't get anywhere else. I mean, it employs the ancient zodiac. See, modern astrologers are not really using the correct zodiac. And Vedic astrology and traditional ancient astrology does use the right zodiac. And boy, if you want to get into angels and really look into the mechanics of reality, that one certainly is like looking behind the curtain. It's amazing what it shows. And the techniques in the toolbox of ancient astrologers is superior. And that is electional astrology, picking auspicious times to commence a I do travel elections all the time for people, whether going for important deals and business things, and I'll have them leave at a good time. And they always tell me, wow, thing went good. And there's been a couple who've gotten irritated with me because they wanted to leave within a certain window, and I couldn't find any good times. You see, I always tell people, I wish I had a spaceship. We could go up there and move stuff around. It wouldn't work that way, you know. So you're at the effect of what's there. I'll never forget this one story. I had this doctor and a lady going through this really big investment deal down in South America, and I told her, I said, don't go at this time. I says, whatever you do. I said, just put it off. Delay it. You know, go in a few weeks. No, got to go now. I said, okay, great. So I get the phone call, and the doctor is telling me, you wouldn't believe what happened. I says, hey, try me, I might. And the person forgot her passport in her wallet, not her purse, but left the wallet on the bathroom, mirror counter or whatever, and jumped on the plane. I'd already gone through security, so didn't need it. Gets down to the destination, had to sleep without a shower for a day and a half until somebody found that wallet, and thank God they did, brought the passport down on another flight, and then was able to proceed. Then the rest of the deal went horribly, and the doctor said he almost got beat up because he was looking in the direction of some man's wife, and the guy got angry and was drunk and wanted to beat him up. And he said the whole deal just blew up in our faces. He says, I said, I'm not here to do anything other than tell you that it wasn't a good energy. I've been involved in a lot of entertainment deals where people have, anything in movies and entertainment goes through a lot of things, and it's like anything, there's always a lot of posturing and negotiating and changing, and you get that in real estate deals, and especially development stuff. But I have really got a lot of history where I've told people, this is a good time to do it, and when they did it, it at the very least, resolved itself very positively, and most of the time it goes exceedingly well. The people that I've told not to do it, it's been shrapnel in the wall. And it was just like the astrology said. Same thing with marriages. I've reversed engineered lots of marriage charts. The time that you're pronounced married, that is exceedingly important, because what's on the eastern horizon at the location you get married is always something ascending, right? That's called the ascendant. And the descendant axis is the other person you're marrying, right? Bride or groom, or whatever you want to, say. It can reverse if she started it. So, or he started it. So here's the point. If the geometry of the two planets in question ruling those angles, meaning eastern, western horizon, are not favorable, you will have an unfavorable result. And if the moon is not making a good geometric aspect, you got it'll invariably have tension at the very least. So it's interesting, and there's infinite combinations. It takes great skill to do electional astrology. I've absolutely seen that play itself out in all kinds of business deals, and that's why I have a lot of people in various positions doing electional astrology for them, and I have to say it's a really valuable tool, and it's not superstitious. It's like a stop and go light. You just wouldn't blow a red light. Now you can if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and no one's around. Hopefully no cops around either, but it's not advisable. You see what I'm saying? So it's like that. But much more complex. It gives you when you have a green light and when you have a yellow and when it's in between shades. So it's really a valuable tool. Again, in marriages, I don't think I've had but 2 marriage elections that didn't work out, and even then, they're still best friends. It amicably was fine, and one of them I said, you really shouldn't be doing this because it was kind of an arranged marriage with the parents, and they didn't want to do it, and the parent had me actually pick a good time, and they lasted quite a long time, about 3 or 4 years, and then they just decided to part ways, and it was done with a hug and a kiss and friendship, and that's what I like about electional astrology. It can really bring a much better outcome.
Can you tell if people are not going to be compatible or they're going to get divorced right away?
Yeah. Vedic astrology is amazing. I have to tell you a story. There was a dear friend of mine who's now passed away that I used to study with in Vedic astrology. It was fun. He and I would do a lot of research. We were really intrigued by the science of Vedic astrology, and we were both at that time single, so he would be going out with girls, I'd be going out with girls and meeting girls, and we would do their charts and see if we were compatible. Well, the ones that we were incompatible with, we'd try and see if we could compensate for it, or at least I would. And the conclusion was, zebras are zebras and tigers are tigers. People are the way they are. And we have no right to change someone else, and they have no right to change us. You either accept who they are or you don't. But I have found invariably in business deals where I've had a lot of people call me up and say, hey, I just hired a key person, or I'm going to, can you look at the chart, see how we're going to get along? And you can do that through interrogation astrology if you don't have their birth data, because a lot of people don't want to tip their hand. If you're hiring some top-level executive or person into your organization, you may not want to say, well, what's your birth time? They'll know their birthday usually on their data, but they don't want to get too much into astrology revealing it. So they'll use interrogation. But the ones that I have done where compatibility with relationships, it's absolutely amazing. In Vedic astrology, which uses the ancient systems, is absolutely right on. And I've seen people who are married who are not very compatible. There's a funny story. This is back in the